Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, we talk about the Los Angeles Parade idea that came up a couple weeks ago and get into Dodger Bromances. So that's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. I'm Vince Samperio, Chavez Ravine Fiends, here together with Jeff Snider of Baseball Essential. Jeff, we're here. It's Valentine's Day while we're recording this, and we are together, so sounds like a successful day to me.
Yeah, I can't think of any. I can only think of 3 or 4 different ways I'd rather spend Valentine's Day than podcasting with you.
Yeah, one of those ways would have probably been talking about who showed up to camp a little early, but baseball's in lockout, and that's not going to happen. So we're going to talk a little bit about the joint parade idea that floated around a couple weeks ago. Now that the Rams did win the Super Bowl, a couple Dodger players weighed in, and LeBron James weighed in. And then we're going to get into some of our favorite bromances and some bromances we hope that happen in the near future. So that's what is coming up. Let's start off, like I said, the Rams won the World Series. They announced their parades on Wednesday. After the game last night, Justin Turner tweeted that they're locked out and have availability for a parade. He asked when the Rams are having it. Earlier on Monday, LeBron James tweeted about a joint parade as well. Mookie Betts said, let's do it. I'm sure some other players maybe talked about it or tweeted about it. I know I saw Kyle Kuzma, formerly of the Lakers, saying only if I can come back for it. So while I don't think it happens, I think it's very possible that we see maybe a couple of Dodgers somehow involved in the parade. Now it seems a little more likely than before.
Yeah, and you and I talked about this, and I still think it would be a little bit weird just because the Dodgers and Lakers both aren't the reigning champions in their respective leagues right now. And so definitely, I don't know. I like LeBron, but this seems like I'm LeBron James and I get what I want. So, of course, I can insert myself into your parade kind of thing. I wouldn't be surprised at all if LeBron and Mookie and a couple people have a car or two in the parade, celebrating Los Angeles kind of thing. But I think it's definitely going to be the Rams parade for sure. And I think that's how it should be. The Dodgers and Lakers earned a parade that they didn't get to have, but that was a long time ago now. It's been almost a year and a half now since either of them won it. And, this is the Rams' time, and they kind of deserve this parade to themselves, and the Dodgers and Lakers just need to each go win again and get their own parades, Yeah,
what we haven't seen is any Rams players acknowledging, or at least I haven't seen yet any Rams players acknowledging LeBron or any of the Dodgers. So, yeah, and more than likely it'll be their parade. I wouldn't be surprised if Mookie or even Kershaw somehow lands his way there. Kershaw was at the Super Bowl wearing Rams gear, supporting his friend Matt Stafford. You had Cody Bellinger was at the game. He wasn't wearing any Rams gear, but he was at the game. Mookie's been to a couple Rams games this year. The Lakers actually play that night on Wednesday, so if LeBron was there, he'd catch a whole lot of flack, so I doubt any of the Lakers will be there. But I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I personally don't really matter. Like I said, they're not reigning champions. While we did miss out on the parade, that's just the nature of how things go. One thing that is happening that I'm not going to be salty about it, but it is just interesting to me of who decides these things is that the Hollywood sign is going to be, they're going to put like big old posters over and change it to Rams House. I don't know for how long. I'm assuming till the parade day. But it does seem interesting that they've never done that for any of the Laker titles that I can remember. Didn't do it for the Dodgers title. And I'm wondering, how it became a thing for the Rams title, other than the Rams have a shorter name. Then I guess maybe that's the biggest impetus.
Yeah, I mean, it might just be that Rams House and Hollywood both have 9 letters in them, but so does Go Dodgers, and I'm sure there's something we could come up with, a 3-letter word to pair with Lakers. It does seem kind of weird, and maybe it's something they plan on doing going forward. And so, again, Dodgers and Lakers win another title, and they can get the Hollywood sign changed for them too. But it does seem weird. Going back to the parade thing, playing devil's advocate a little bit, the Rams players might be aware that that LA isn't quite a Rams town yet, and so maybe just for the sake of packing the parade, it might be a good idea to get Mookie, and like you said, the Lakers play that night, so it might be hard to actually get LeBron there. But if you had Mookie and Kershaw there, maybe that does get a few more people out there to celebrate. And I don't know. The Dodgers are the only game in town when it comes to baseball. The Lakers technically do have some competition in LA among basketball fans, although I think the vast majority of LA basketball fans are Lakers over Clippers. And I don't know. And so maybe this might be the Hollywood sign might be just the city's way of kind of embracing the Rams, recognizing that there's still some work to do to turn LA into a Rams town, and so maybe it's kind of an overcompensation kind of thing.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know who's in charge of that. I don't know if it's a city. I don't know if there's a separate company. I know Stan Kroenke's super rich, so if he wants to try to help turn this city into a Rams town, that's one way to do it. Building a $6 billion stadium was another way to do it, and it all kind of came to fruition with the Rams winning in that stadium. So maybe this is an extension of that. But either way, like I said, Los Angeles will get a parade on Wednesday. I'm interested to see, obviously we've seen a lot of things with COVID and stuff, but for the most part, any parades that have happened, there has not been any really, anything that's kind of holding back people. So I'm interested to see how packed LA gets, how, we saw some fans last night getting a little crazy. I don't know. I have yet to meet personally a Rams fan that would do anything of that nature. Like, there's nobody I know that's deep into it, but I know there are people that are that deep into it. But I do think it's just an excuse to party, and I do think that might get the parade pretty popular on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think a lot of the craziness we see in any situation like this often is just an excuse more than the diehard fans. Especially when you get into looting or turning over cars or whatever. A lot of times that those people aren't necessarily the diehard fans; they're the people looking for an excuse to flip over a car. But yeah, it's an exciting time, and it is a bummer. I mentioned on Twitter. I think it's funny that the NBA and Major League Baseball play their postseasons in actual home stadiums / arenas, alternating, and the NFL plays the Super Bowl in a neutral site, and yet the Dodgers and Lakers won their championships at neutral sites, and the Rams won it at their home stadium.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's true. All right, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about Bromances celebrating, Valentine's Day as we're recording. I guess Side Chick Day, I think is what it's called, February 15th, when you buy the leftover chocolate. And we're not getting into that, but we are going to get into Built Bars. Built Bars, it's better than chocolate bars. Don't go buy, those chocolate candies, even if they're 50% off or whatever it is. Go to Built Bar, get you some Built Bars, because not only are they great tasting, but they're good for you. They're all 100% covered in chocolate. They got Built Puffs, which are a fan favorite, which are really, really good as well. They're also really good for you. They're all low calorie, low sugar, low carbs, high protein, high fiber. Basically, all you could ask for out of a protein bar, but tastes like a candy bar. And there's really no reason for you to not go try it. And right now, you can get 15% off with the promo code LOCK15 when you go to Built.com. So go to Built.com and get 15% off your order with the promo code LOCKED15. Now, after you do that, head over to RockAuto.com, because this episode is brought to you by RockAuto.com. And it's one of those places where you can go and find whatever you need for your car. It's much better than going to a store, because stores these days can't have every part for every car. and they're going to have to order for you anyway. So why would you want to leave your couch or your bed or wherever you're at? Get on your phone, get on your laptop, go to rockauto.com, check out everything they got for you. And guess what? You're also going to spend less money than you would from that chain store car dealership. Sometimes up to 100% off or cheaper than you would pay if you go to one of those places. And you're helping out a family business that's been serving people online for over 20 years. So head over to rockauto.com today. Check out all the parts for your car or truck and write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, Jeff, we are back. And before we get into bromance talk, I believe we had a death in the Dodgers family. The scout that discovered Clayton Kershaw, among others, Calvin Jones, right?
Calvin Jones.
Calvin Jones. So, thoughts, prayers, and everything else, positive vibes to him, his family, and everyone dealing with that. And salute to him for being one of the ones that spearheaded Clayton Kershaw to the Dodgers.
Yeah, good things came from that. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, very good things. All right, so it's Valentine's Day right now, and there's been a nice little mix of Dodger bromances in the last few years. Not so much before. I don't know if it was was there a lot of bromances back in the day, Jeff? Was it more of a toxic masculinity thing? I don't know, but it seems to be more of a thing now.
Yeah, it does. I can't think of that many from back then, although, I mean, Hershiser and Scioscia were pretty tight. I don't know if it ever got to the level of bromance. For that matter, Hershiser and Lasorda. I do think that it's maybe a more current thing that players are more willing to show those signs of affection. I think the closest we got in previous eras of Dodger baseball is when Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale both held out for more money in the same spring training. So it wasn't quite a bromance. It was just a joint negotiation tactic. But, we'll call it a bromance since it's Valentine's Day.
Yeah, whatever works. So we're going to pick some of our favorite ones, and then we're also going to pick some ones that we hope to develop here in the near future. There's not really a draft or any order of this. We'll just kind of talk about some of them. I guess we'll stick with the Kershaw theme and just know that, he had one of the bigger ones of recent memory with him and A.J. Ellis. And, regardless of what happened with Ellis toward the end of his Dodger career, kind of being, shipped out in a weird way, or for a weird way, it seemed like for most people. For a while there, it was the budding bromance of the Dodgers. And like we mentioned last week when we talked about Kershaw pitching performances, A.J. Ellis would have done anything for Clayton Kershaw's success on the field or probably even off the field.
Yeah, and, Kershaw named one of his children after A.J. Ellis. Cooper's middle name is Ellis, and so that's obviously it's a real friendship. I sometimes wonder, as far as Ellis goes, if there was some element of I'm going to hitch my wagon to this Hall of Famer, or if it really was just a genuine friendship. Probably it's too cynical to view it that way, but when you look at talent, there was definitely a big talent gap there. Ellis was a productive member of the team and deserved to be starting catcher for the few years that he was. But yeah, he wasn't quite Clayton Kershaw, but it was fun to, one of my favorite parts of Kershaw's no-hitter is how happy A.J. Ellis was for him and to have been a part of that. So I think that's a cool one.
Yeah, it seems like obviously every pitcher is different, but a couple pitchers have had guys like that, A.J. Ellis, where even if they're not necessarily the best catcher on the roster, they're going to catch, and we see it now a little bit with Barnes sometimes, or we did before, because Greg Maddux had Eduardo Perez was his, catcher, who, Javi Lopez was obviously much better catcher, but Maddux games would get you Eduardo Perez sometimes. So pitcher-catcher is a special relationship. Jeff, you got the next one for us?
Yeah, I whenever I think of bromances, that kind of the first one I think of is Hyunjin Ryu and Juan Uribe. That first spring training when you and I first met back in 2015, I have a picture, and maybe I'll pop it up on the screen right now as I'm talking when we're in post-production, a picture that I took at that spring training of Ryu crouched down on one of the spring training backfields, crouched down behind a fence, just waiting to pounce when Juan Uribe walked by. And, and that was early in Ryu's career with the Dodgers. He didn't speak a ton of English yet at that point. And, and Uribe, you and I think, have both talked to Juan Uribe and know that English was never really his comfortable language either. So it's kind of funny that these two guys, they probably had to communicate in English because it was the only language that they both knew, but neither of them knew much of it. And yet they were still such good friends and just genuinely, you could tell they just really liked being together, liked joking around with each other, like, just fooling around. And then it was always kind of funny to watch Yasiel Puig kind of trying to be part of that. I don't know what the bromance version of a threesome is, but trying to be involved in that, kind of really is representative of Yasiel Puig's career a little bit. Always kind of desperate to be part of the crowd,
Yeah, he definitely tried there. And Hanley Ramirez kind of got in the mix there a little bit as well at one point. Puig and Aegon a little bit linked, just mainly because Aegon was kind of trying to take care of Puig and make sure he didn't mess up. But speaking of Aegon, the one that have the bromance that has a dual combined bobblehead, the ones that had their own celebration, started the selfie celebration. Kind of, I'm not going to say they were the first ones, but they were the first ones that I remember that did it on a consistent basis and, kind of had that specific home run moment. Bash Brothers had the forearm bash, and Aegon and Turner had the selfie. And Aegon's a nice guy, Turner's a nice guy. They probably get along with everybody, but just that connection there added a little bit different element.
Yeah, the selfie one, I've got the bobbleheads right back there. That one was always a lot of fun. Again, you can tell that they genuinely liked each other, and I don't know why that appeals to us, the whole bromance thing in general as sports fans, but seeing players who genuinely like each other, especially when you do know that there's always the Greinke and Puig relationships and different guys who we may talk about one of them in the next segment a little bit, who maybe guys who aren't as tight, and you can tell, okay, they're teammates, they will play hard together, but they're not going to be hanging out. And so it is fun to see the guys who you think, oh yeah, they probably do hang out.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, we got time for maybe one or two more. You got another one?
There's I mentioned Oral Hershiser from his playing days, but Joe and Oral right now have maybe the biggest bromance going, and pretty it's having talked to Joe and heard his story about when he got hired by the Dodgers, and that his first phone call was from Oral Hershiser. Just he got a message telling him, can't wait to work with you, really look forward to it. And when they did their podcast during COVID times that unfortunately didn't survive, they didn't keep doing it, but they ended every episode by saying love you, and or Joe did, and eventually guilt tripped Oral into returning it. That's another one where I think Dodger broadcasts are that much more fun because you can tell that they genuinely like talking baseball together for 3 or 4 hours a night.
Yeah, and I got one more. It wasn't necessarily a bromance, but it was more of a moment. It was Rod Barajas, D. Gordon, and the moment in the dugout when D. Gordon climbed into Rod Barajas' arms and he rocked him like a baby. Like I said, they didn't necessarily have a bromance specifically, but that specific moment just screams bromance.
Yeah, and D. Gordon was one of those guys who, you think of like Kike and Scott Van Slyke, some of those guys who they were just kind of a walking bromance. Whoever they were talking to at the moment, they had a bromance with. I feel like D. Gordon and maybe Rob Barajas too, maybe two of those guys who just came together to form the perfect bromance, baby rocking. So.
Yeah, there you go. We're going to try to form our own perfect bromances. But first, let's talk about BetOnline. Football is over, but basketball is not, and it's full steam ahead for both pro and college hoops. And from all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is also your source for hockey, boxing, UFC, and Olympic coverage and information. So head to betonline.net today on your laptop or mobile device and learn more about the trends and all the action going on. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, let's finish up creating our own bromances. And Jeff, I know you have one in mind that is very interesting.
Yeah, my first one, there aren't any current bromances on the team probably. Jock Peterson's another one of those guys. I could have lumped him with Kike and Scott Van Slyke, who was just kind of a walking bromance. And it seemed like Cody Bellinger had at least a budding bromance with Jock and with Corey Seager. And now that both of those guys are gone, I feel like Cody needs a bromance. And maybe I'm cheating by picking somebody who's not on the team yet. But I think the perfect bromance for Cody would be Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman, fellow left-handed hitter, and such a consistent swing. And we know that when Cody does have a struggle, sometimes it's at least partly due sometimes to not being consistent with his swing, tinkering too much or whatever. And I feel like, maybe I'm looking for practicality in my bromances. That Cody and Freddie, if they spent some time together, maybe they could talk swings a little bit, and some of that consistency could rub off on Bellinger. And Bellinger's a dad now too, so they could talk dad stuff too. But I feel like Cody needs a bromance, and Freddie Freeman is just the man. So obviously step one is sign Freddie Freeman. Step two, bromance, and step four, profit. Right?
Yeah, I have no qualms or quibbles about that one. Let's get that on board. The next one, or the one I'm going to start with, is a Bullpen Bromance, and it's a nice combination of a right-hander and a left-hander. You got a guy that's 6'1", and then you have a guy that's 6'1", but in very different packages, and that's Brusdar Graterol and Alex Vesia. They both bring a lot to the mound in terms of velocity. They both bring a lot into the mound in terms of intensity. And I would love to see them together in the Dodgers bullpen for the next few years. A righty-lefty combination in the later innings. Maybe even becoming closers, switching off at some point in their careers, and bringing that energy and intensity and everything that comes with them and their personalities to the Dodger bullpen.
Yeah, that's a good one. Graterol's really only 6'1".
That's what he's listed as. I was very surprised right now.
I would have guessed 9'3".
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a big dude. So, my next one, I feel like Trey Turner needs a bromance, if for no other reason than to maybe encourage him to re-sign with the Dodgers, stay in LA, and I think Gavin Lux could use one too, as kind of a mentoring type thing. And I feel like Trey Turner and Gavin Lux, if they're going to be the Dodgers middle infield, they might as well have a bromance going, especially because they could play pranks on people and nobody would ever catch them because they're both so darn fast. And so, I feel like they could be the little sneaky little fast guys who are, constantly, Trevor Bauer tried to be the prankster on the team and didn't quite work because, for a lot of reasons. But I feel like Trey Turner and Gavin Lux could be the pranksters because they could get away with anything because they're tiny and they're fast.
Yeah, I had Turner on my list as well, just for the same reason. If he develops a bromance, maybe he's a little bit more likely to stay, or maybe that if he does develop a bromance, maybe he feels more comfortable with staying long term. The last one I have is a little bit more practical as well, and it's just because once again I want to see these two with the Dodgers for a long time, but also want to make sure that these two are playing at the same time when one of them is on the mound and one of them is behind the plate. That's Walker Buehler and Will Smith. We saw things in 2020. We saw Austin Barnes get Kershaw starts and then start getting Walker Buehler starts, and then we were concerned a little bit about that heading into the 2021 season. Will Smith ended up taking a majority of the starts regardless of who was on the mound at the end of the day. But for a catcher that should hopefully be around for a long time, for Walker Buehler, who should hopefully settle into that ace position and role and be the Dodgers guy, the next Kershaw, here for 15 plus years. I'd love for them to develop a chemistry, not only on the field, off the field. And, they're both from the same general area, so they should have enough to keep them, in a bromance. And would love to see it, like I said, for practical reasons. Walker Buehler's in love with his catcher, then I think he's going to bring it even more so than he does already.
Yeah, I could definitely enjoy seeing Will Smith be as happy to catch Walker Buehler's no-hitter as A.J. Ellis was to catch Clayton Kershaw's. I have one last one that just for pure silliness, Mookie Betts. I'm thinking like the opposites attract kind of thing. And Mookie Betts is so smooth at everything he does. He's a little tiny guy. And, and I'm thinking, okay, what's the opposite of Mookie Betts in every way? And the answer is Luke Raley. And I feel like Mookie and Lukey, or Mook and Luke, depending on how you want to phrase it. I feel like it would be the greatest, Luke Raley could be Mookie's henchman, like on Christmas Story, you got the little bully and his big dumb friend, and obviously Mookie's not a bully, but Luke Raley could definitely play the big dumb friend. And I just feel like for everybody involved, a Mook and Luke combo would be really, really fun.
Yeah, you got the name down right there, the rhyming name. So, yeah, Mookie does need a bromance. I'm not sure. Rayleigh could be the guy. I'm not sure if he'll develop one with anyone else. But, it's a good start. All right, I think that's it for today. We created our bromances. That's going to do it for today's episode. Jeff, you got anything else to add before we really get out of here?
No, happy Valentine's Day to you, Vince. And, whatever they call the 15th, happy that to you, too.
There you go. There we go. We're celebrating these 2 days. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. We'll be back the rest of this week to maybe talk MLB negotiations, maybe talk some other Dodger stuff, maybe start, trying to get into season mode like we should be doing. But if you're not listening, or if you are listening to us, your first listen, make your second listen of the day Locked On Bets, which is your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. If you want to find us, we are on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vince Samperio. DMs are open on all those accounts to get a hold of us. You can also get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via text/voicemail at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Search My Device Play Podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree, you just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.